Hello everyone, welcome back to another deck profile with me, Chocobilly, and this is a bit of a weird one because I am making a video on a deck that I made in Opus 18, but we're like basically a month into Opus 19 now. But I like the deck, it was a lot of fun, it ran pretty, well, alright, considering, and yeah, it's got a lot of fun things with it. I could have updated it, but I didn't because this was already an updated version, so yeah, but I still think it stands up, and it's still got some decent combos in it, and a bit of fun. Anyway, so yeah, the deck's called Big Shot Barret 2.0, so as you can tell, it utilises, or Barret is one of the key focuses in the deck, but not the Barret that actually has the S ability, Big Shot, so yeah, that's kind of funny as well, but what I'll do is I'll start with the forwards, move on to the summons, monsters, and then backups. So first up we have Tifa. So she is the Tifa that gives Brave to all your 7 forwards and plus 2000 power, and then at damage 3, all the forwards, all the 7 forwards you control cannot be broken by opposing summons or abilities that don't deal damage. So this is supposed to combo quite well with all your 7 forwards, but as you can imagine, I'm running Yuffie. It is Earth, Wind, and it's 7 focus. I'm going to have Yuffie in there. But being able to protect Yuffie from certain effects and giving her Brave and plus 2000 outside of her own protective ability on your turn is quite important, and also being able to attack with her and then before she's even reactivated through her own ability, to be able to dull her for the S might be very useful. So again, giving her Brave is quite nice as well. But you've also got the Barret that this deck is focused around as well, being able to attack with him and then dull him for his own effect. Cloud, just make him a 10k as well, isn't so bad. What other 10? I think that's it for the 10. Oh, we've got the other Tifa as well. So this Tifa takes 2000 less damage. Oh wait, you can't have 2 Tifas on the field, can you? I know how to play this game. And next up we have Barret. So this is the Barret that this deck was idealized around. So if you control a job Avalanche Operative, the cost required to cast Barret is reduced by 2. And you can dull an active Barret, choose one forward your opponent controls, break it. You can only use this ability if a job Avalanche Operative you controlled isn't put from the field into the break zone this turn. So what you can do is you can get your Ziggy and put him into the break zone. Here's a job Avalanche Operative. Go search yourself a Barret. If you have something like, say, Neo or Polk on the field, you can play him onto the field for only 1 CP, and you can immediately dull him to then break a forward that your opponent controls. So yeah, it doesn't matter if that Barret doesn't need to see the Avalanche Operative being put from the field into the break zone. It just has to have been broken basically this turn. But you can dull Barret to then break something. You then obviously can attack with something like Yuffie to reactivate all your forwards, and then you can dull Barret again. So yeah, it's a fun little combo. We also got Asura as well, both Asuras, to be able to reactivate him to then get another break if you really wanted to. But ultimately, being able to pay 1 CP for this dude and just get him onto the field, immediately break, dull to break, that's really good value. If you get multiple, that's really good, and it's an unmitigated break as well. So it doesn't have to be dull, the forward doesn't have to be of a certain CP cost or power, it's literally just choose a forward, break it, and that's pretty good. Next up we have Cloud. So obviously you need a Avalanche Operative forward on the field to actually be able to utilize Cloud's effects, and the only forwards I have that are Avalanche Operatives is Barret. Now I do have Neo on the field as well, which means that you can give your forwards the job if you wanted to, and I also have Bart's on the field, so it means that Bart's can also gain that job. So there are other means of getting that effect, but ultimately the chances are most of the time it will be Barret. Now, I don't have any fire in the deck. I do have Shantoto, but that is the only means of generating fire. So the idea was actually just to use Leafkin. So 2 wind and 1 dull put into the break zone, search a forward of 5 or 6, play it onto the field. If you can do that with Barret already on the field, that means Cloud enters, gets both of his effects, maybe gives everything haste and deals 10k to something, or it could be you play Polk onto the field to then get something back to your hand, because Cloud ultimately can play Avalanche Operatives onto the field, doesn't matter if they're forward or backup, but it has to be 4 or less obviously, but yeah, there's only 1 in the deck and for that reason only, but it could be fun if you do get him onto the field. Right, next up we have a single Cecil. It's Earth Wind, it needs some sort of protection. Cecil's probably the easiest way to be able to do that. Play Cecil onto the field. I don't have any other 4 characters in the deck, so you're not going to get his reactivation, but ultimately just having the Cecil effect to be able to protect your stuff is enough. Arciella. Another fantastic card in Earth, and again another means of being able to protect your forwards. Being able to give something plus 4k and then negating all damage is really important. The negate is actually probably more important than the plus 4k, because to be able to remove all damage from something is just really, really good. It's its own keyword, and yeah, I think Negation is a fantastic ability. But, you know, being able to buff stuff as well, remove things from your opponent's break zone as well, their summons, so if they've got stuff like, I don't know, Terror, or Man in Black, which can recur things from the break zone, this card becomes even better. But, so this is a weird one, really should only be a one-off, but me being me, I put 2 in the deck, because there are some stupid fun combos in there. So you can have Barret be a job operative, Avalanche operative, sorry, so that means your Barret then becomes only 1 CP, which is fine, I guess. You can also use Neo to give Barret another job, which you might share with another forward on the field, at which point he will then gain plus 2k from that, which is a nice little power swing, which your opponent might not take into account. But ultimately, the idea was play him onto the field, make him ice, and then alongside Poppy, he then gains plus 2k and plus 1k and first strike, which if he shares a job with Poppy, a Cerulean Painter, then he becomes an 8k first striker, which for 2 CP isn't the worst, and it means he can't be targeted by wind or ice summons either. Summons and abilities, or just summons? I can't remember now. Summons or abilities. That's not too bad. Poppy, so being able to give all your earth forwards plus 1k in Brave is really good. Again, similar to Tifa, being able to make it so that your Barret is big, so you can attack and then dole to get the break is really, really good. But then having things like Arciela be a bit bigger, having things like the other Tifa as well, or even giving this Tifa a bit of a power buff as well, because this Tifa's plus 2k in Brave only applies to every other 7 forward. So being able to give her a little bit of a damage or a power boost and Brave is also quite nice. But yeah, being able to make it so that things like Yuffie and Cecil can swing under 3 costs as well is really, really useful. Poppy's just a really good win con card that can come out of nowhere and all of a sudden really change the landscape of the field for your opponent. So if they don't have an answer then and there, you're going to be probably dealing a fair few points of damage. Yuffie. It's Yuffie. What more is there to say? She has a stupid... I mean, she's got haste. She deals stupid amounts of damage with her S ability. She can reactivate plus 1k. It's just bonkers. Yeah, I don't have any more Yuffies in the deck. I am running Asura, so I can get 2 costs from my break zone, but I don't have any of the small Yuffie in the deck because that wasn't the main focus. To be honest, just with these 3 Yuffies in the deck and being able to just play her onto the field and keep on getting her effect off reliably was pretty easy anyway, so I didn't need additional. I'm not going to go ham. The point of the deck is to do some fun things, and so yeah, just being able, the focus more for this Yuffie was to be able to actually just reactivate my forwards and do some other silly things. So yeah, a lot of fun. Daisy. It's nice to have a lightning rod for all that damage, so if your Barret is going to die, for example, then Daisy's going to suck up all that damage. And if, for example, you've got Daisy and Cecil on the field and the opponent's in fire, they're trying to nuke stuff, they're going to have to pay 2 every single time they target something, and then it's all going to go to Daisy anyway, so that can become a pretty horrible position for your opponent to have to be in. And again, I've got 3 Daisy because her S is fun. Chelenka. It can break monsters with no real regard for its cost, which is really, really good. Not much more to say than that. And finally, we've got this Tifa as well. Now, I have 2 of the 5-cost Tifa from Opus 11, and I have 2 of this Tifa. The main reason being I want to use this Tifa's S. To be able to pay an Earth, Wind, 2 colourless, and an S, choose up to 3 forwards and deal them 8k, ain't too bad. Now, 8k is actually a little bit low these days, but still, being able to choose 3 forwards and just break them is really good in Earth, Wind. Being able to just get rid of that stuff immediately is good. But she's also got a good entry effect, comes in, probably kills something, takes less damage as well, which means the +1 off of Poppy makes her, you know, pretty strong. She's brave, but she also swings under things as well. And to be honest, this Tifa actually did probably more work than the other legendary Tifa, just because she has removal upon entry, she has a good S ability as well, and I just really like her. Right, moving on to the summons now. So, as I mentioned before, I've got Asura, so reactivate all your backups to utilise some of the effects. Choose 2 forwards, activate them, so being able to reactivate your Yuffie to then use her S ability. If she is dull for whatever reason, your opponent dulls her out before you even get a chance to attack with her. Similarly with Barret as well, just making sure that he stands back up and uses his ability. There aren't really that many forwards that you want to be using there. I don't think there are any forwards other than those 2 that have dull abilities, so that's the primary focus there. But being able to choose all your backups as well and activate them is very, very useful, especially if you're using something like Neo to give jobs or give Brave but then want to do it again, or reactivating your Lael to then be able to cancel a summon. Really useful. Then we've got the Opus 5 Asura. So again, it's negating damage. So choose one forward you control, activate it, negate all damage, draw one card. So there's 3 effects there, which are pretty good. You get to activate the forward, negate all damage done to it, and then you get to draw the card as well. The draw cards are nice, but again, negating damage and being able to activate something on an EX is important, and that EX actually saved me from a game. So yeah, I really like this card, and I think it's worth it. 2 Mist Dragons. To be able to cancel summons or to be able to empty your opponent's break zone. It's Mist Dragon, there's not much more to be said really. 2 Sith, being able to get back those Euphies for the S ability, be able to get back the Barrets to play them back onto the field to then break stuff again. It's just being able to recycle all those forwards to get the problematic forwards onto the field are really good. There's a lot of problematic forwards in this deck for your opponent, but it can vary depending on what they're playing. If they're playing something like Lightning, where there's lots of like little chip damage or little targeting abilities, then maybe Cecil might be better because they have to pay 2 every single time. If your opponent's in Fire, then maybe Daisy is better. You know, it really does depend. If they're in Water, maybe Euphy's better because they've got no targeted or they've got no non-targeted removal, something like that. So yeah, being able to use Q-Sith to bring back one of the problematic forwards, of which there are a lot, is very useful. Atomos. So to be honest, you could probably switch out Atomos for Evray, or maybe have one Atomos, one Evray, because being able to play Atomos onto the field, then play Barret onto the field for 1 to reactivate 2 isn't too shabby. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's Atomos. It just makes efficiency even more efficient. And it's a really good card. Shantoto. Board wipe. Also gives you a 5 if you want to use your Cloud out of hand, but probably don't do that. Aerith. So this is a fun little card. If your opponent is playing lots of targeting, so again, this tends to focus more on Lightning, Ice, Fire a little bit, where your forwards have been targeted by your opponent's backups. Aerith, really, really useful. Being able to stop any targeted effects is really good. If your opponent's got a Fire Geomancer wants to stop you from blocking, now they can't. Norsh Talum, be able to search your Lael. They're the only 2 forwards, or they're the only 2 FFCC backups in the deck, so really I probably should put some more in here, but I didn't want to saturate my backups with more FFCC, but I did want a bit of consistency, so I probably could have gone for something else, but ultimately I wanted Lael, because Lael's an important card to be able to cancel those summons, and Norsh Talum's the way to find it. Gabranth, being able to give Brave. This alongside Neo, they both have Dull to choose a forward, give it Brave. Again, with Barret, with Yuffie, making it so they don't go Dull, so they then become susceptible to some of Ice's stuff, like summons that deal damage to Dull forwards. Or, you know, just not putting them in that position where they do go Dull. Just have them attack, immediately use their effects on the attack stack is really, really nice. Ziggy, there's 3 of because you need 3 of him. You can break him. You can find yourself a Yuffie. You can find yourself a Tifa. You can find yourself a Barret. There's just no end of good forwards that you can find to suit the situation you need. It could be either Tifa as well. You could be finding a Tifa to use for the Opus 18S ability, or it could be finding the Opus 11 Tifa because your opponent has only got, you know, just straight up break effects and no damage dealing, at which point that Tifa becomes a big problem for them. So yeah, Ziggy, and ultimately Ziggy can also be put back into your hand through Polk as well. So when he enters the field, choose a Job Avalanche operative in your break zone, add it to your hand. You already got Barret there. You've put Ziggy into the, maybe the play was actually you put Ziggy into the break zone to find yourself a Barret. You play Barret onto the field. You then play Polk onto the field to then get Ziggy back to hand, replay Ziggy. You know, there's lots of good ways to be able to get stuff back. Leafkin, so being able to play Cloud, Cecil, Yuffie, or Tifa onto the field through Leafkin is very, very nice, especially during combat as well. You can only use it during your turn, but you can use it at any point during your turn. So maybe you attack with a forward, your opponent blocks, and you're like, okay, I'm just going to bring out Tifa, give my 7 forwards plus 2k in Brave. All of a sudden they become a big threat, especially if it's something like Yuffie. Maybe they've invested a lot to make their forward even bigger, and they've made their forward, say, like something stupid like an 11k or 12k. You use Leafkin, bring in Tifa, make Yuffie a 12k as well to match that, and hopefully kill the forward. Neo, give Brave or be able to give a Job. The Job is less applicable, but it's an Avalanche operative that can also reduce Barret's cost. And finally we have Polk. Just being able to get your Avalanche operatives back to hand is a really good effect. And ultimately Dull, put them into the break zone, choose a forward, it gains plus £2,000 to the end of the turn. Again, that's a really useful ability. It's only 1 and a Dull, and break, obviously. and you do have means of getting Polk back as well if you need to. But ultimately, actually no, well no you do technically, but that is by using Polk to get Polk back, which is kind of weird. But ultimately, it's a really useful effect. And the plus 2k, again, with the Tifa plus 2k and the Poppy plus 1k, it goes a long way. And there we go. As you can see, there are a lot of cheap forwards in the deck. There's a few high-cost ones, which, given that I'm playing Leafkin, you might expect there to be a few more. But it's a fairly niche play, and having that there just as a threat, it means your opponent, if they haven't seen the deck, they've got no idea what you can bring out. And in Earth, Wind, there's a lot of good forwards you can bring out. Chances are they'll probably accurately guess it when you do bring out Cecil, but they might not expect the Opus 11 Tifa. So yeah, lots of fun things. It's weighted slightly more towards Earth, but actually if you look at it, that's, well, the Fire, that's also Earth as well, because that's Cloud really. You got Chelinka and Tifa as well, but the Earth forwards are the more important ones in terms of what the deck is supposed to be doing. So you want your 3 Barrets, you want 3 Daisies to protect stuff, you want 3 Kusif, because it's EX as well, you know. Although you don't actually have many EXs in the deck. There's Asura, there's Mist Dragon, and not Mist Dragon, there's Kusif, and there is, I've forgotten. What is that? What's the other one? Is that it? Or whatever. Yeah, but ultimately, yeah, the deck is a lot of fun to run. It can go hard surprisingly fast. Now, obviously, most of the time, if it's running well, it's probably because of Yuffie, because Yuffie is very hard to get rid of. But being able to have that added mobility there with throwing down a Barret and say, I'm just going to break your stuff now as well. I don't even have to worry about Yuffie being broken from other effects or being blocked because your forwards are dead. And using that Ziggy to be able to get that Barret as well, because 9 times out of 10 your opponent expects Ziggy to go find Yuffie to then use Yuffie's S, but actually there's a lot of commitment there to be able to use the Yuffie as well. What is it? 2 wind? Yeah, 2 wind and a dull, and the S for Yuffie. So Yuffie has to become dull for that as well. Whereas if you just break the Ziggy, then you just play Barret onto the field for 1, break it, then dull him to break that one thing. You saved yourself 2 CP and a Yuffie S card. So you've got lots of other means of breaking stuff. And it's just, yeah, it can go hard, and it's nice to see some cards that never get played, like that Barret, for example. It's always the Fire, Earth Barret that gets played, and rightly so. In a Avalanche deck, it should be. But when it came to this, I decided to go for this. Well, this was the point of the Barret. Now, obviously, I don't have Biggs, Wedge, Jesse in the deck, and that's because ultimately they actually they were in the original version of the deck, but they watered it down too much. They weren't really serving a purpose, especially when they don't have haste from the Barret, and that's why I say that other Barret normally would be better, but that's not the point of this deck. So I took them out, replaced them with things like Arciella, Daisy, and it functions so much better because they are forms of protection that allow my Barret to survive and kill things. Anyway, tell me how you might change the deck. What might you put in it? Are there any cards that I missed out that I clearly should have put in here? I mean, I probably could upweight Cecil to 2, get rid of, Bart's altogether. Poppy, I think, is a very useful inclusion, though. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, guys. Stay safe, be lucky, and I will see you in the next video.